Hey, morning everyone. Thanks everybody for joining us. And as always, we try and kick off on time, mindful of everybody's time as we start to get back into reopening mode, which is great and very exciting. Today we have the wonderful Helena from Net Affinity joining us today to talk about Meta. But before I kind of hand over to Helena, we've got loads of content to go through and it's really exciting and a subject that I'm really interested in learning some more about. But just for those of you who are maybe on the call that maybe don't know us particularly well, I just wanted to let you know that we're based in Ireland as well, another homegrown Irish company. And we do revenue management software. And so we will do all the rate recommendations and forecasting and predictions and give you a huge amount of data out of your PMS. And we're working really hard with the hotels in our portfolio at the moment to get them ready for opening. And I guess one of the things that we wanted to do during this awful year and pandemic was really look at how we could give back to the industry, and hence this series of Revenue Ready was born. And everyone who joins us, and we've had some amazing speakers, and everyone who joins us gives up their free time very willingly every week to sort of impart lots of knowledge and tips and advice for us all to get us ready for opening. So as I say, we have Helena joining us today, and I'm really excited to talk about Meta, because Meta for me is something that's still quite young, and it's still something as a channel that we're still learning about. And I think it's one of those things that sometimes as hoteliers, we know it's there. We maybe look at our digital marketing agencies to kind of give us advice and tell us a little bit about it. But I think Helena's just going to open that black box that is Meta and kind of talk us through it. So Helena is, I'm just going to read this, Helena, if you don't mind, so I don't forget and give you the introduction that you are due. But Helena is e-commerce lead at Net Affinity and is a graduate of Shannon College of Hotel Management. Helena has a wealth of experience in revenue management and digital marketing across a wide range of markets and hotel brands, both here in Ireland and in the UK. And you've worked for Net Affinity for over 6 years and leads a team of e-commerce managers with a clear focus on book direct, which is obviously 2 words we love to hear. And actually, when I read your bio, the thing that I love most about it is that it states that you're passionate about bringing revenue, data, analytics, and digital marketing all together. And if any of you have heard me speak before, it's something I'm really passionate about in revenue, is trying to kind of break down those silos, very overused word in our industry, but kind of break down those silos and let revenue kind of have an oversight of everything. So great place to start, Helena. So I'm going to hand it over to you, but just very quickly, I'm going to keep an eye on the chat box today. So please feel free to ask questions and I will, give those to Helena. So any of your questions, put them in the chat box and I'll look after them. Helena, over to you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me, Adrienne, to speak here today, and thank you all for logging in to be willing to listen to me talking about it today. So I have a quick agenda of what we're going to go through. Sorry, let's make sure I'm on the right slides here. I'm just going to give a quick overview of my background and what we do in Net Affinity, if you're not aware of us in Net Affinity. Give a good definition of what Meta is and give you examples and how it looks to the user. Love it, hate it, so that's advantages and disadvantages of Meta. We talk about book direct and how important that still is in regards to meta search and just obviously for revenue in general. And then what can I do? So I want to give you some practical tips as to what you need to be doing in order to appear well on Meta, but also get those bookings in. And there are some elements you probably don't think about with Meta that you want to make sure you've seen today. So just a quick overview from my background and my experience. As Adrienne mentioned, I went to Shannon College, graduated in 2018. After Shannon, my final year internship, I went across to London to work in Aurora Hotels in Heathrow as part of their group. So I was a commercial intern there. And then after my internship, I stayed on to become group revenue analyst and revenue manager for one of their 4-star properties, the Aurora Hotel in Heathrow, which is was at the time one of the very few, if not the only non-branded hotel in Heathrow, not part of one of the big brands. So that was a great experience to see how that works in that market. Aurora Hotels at the time had 7 properties, 2 Sofitels, a Renaissance, Holiday Inn, 2 Aurora own brands, and a Savile Court own brand. So I was working with own brand hotels, but also with the big brands and franchising and getting to know all their systems at the same time as well and how they work. So between all the properties, we had every type of business. We had delay flights, large conferences, tours, corporates, leisure, weddings, groups, absolutely everything. And so it was a baptism of fire in terms of revenue management working with the Aurora Group. So I was there for 2.5 years and then decided to come home to Ireland and started working at Net Affinity. So we're based in Dublin and I'm working since 2014 with Net Affinity. Started off as an account exec and worked my way up and now managing the e-commerce team. So in case you're not aware of who we are, Net Affinity, we're a technology and digital marketing company specializing in driving new business directly to a hotel website. So we have 3 strings to our bow. We have the booking engine technology, which is the core part of our business. So obviously that's the powering the bookings on the website for hoteliers. We have the website design. So we do bespoke website designs, and we also have our website builder product for template sites. It's a very easy and cost-effective way of creating a great up-to-date website for your hotel. And then we have our digital marketing service. So we have a fantastic team of digital marketeers who work with strategy and with our clients to make sure they're making most of the digital space. We're exclusively focused on the hospitality sector. So it's what we do. Hotels are our bread and butter. So we are experts in what we do because we're able to learn from how many properties we do have. And our goal is really to help independent hoteliers achieve the great online presence, drive the bookings direct and keep them in control of the booking process so that you're not being overwhelmed and with OTA bookings, that you can achieve those bookings that you have control of and at a good price for you at the hotel. Our team is commercially focused, experienced and passionate. So especially our e-commerce and client success team, we've all worked in hotels. We don't hire people unless you have that hospitality experience, because as you can see, like I was a revenue manager, so I know what it's like to be in that space, what revenue managers need, what a system that works well for you from a using perspective, but also from the operation perspective, what your hotel needs. And then we have our marketing specialists with the expertise in the marketing field, and our web designers and developers from a user experience and IT field. So we bring all of that together to kind of, what we want to do is create best of both worlds, something that works well for you at the hotel, but also we can bring our expertise to the table as well to make sure your website is one of the best in class. So our combined skill set ensures online success and drive the continued growth bookings for our revenue. So that's just a quick overview of what we do. And I can just seeing the list of attendees here today, we work with a good number of people and who know us and have worked with me specifically. So a lot of you do have a good sense of what we do. So then on to the main area of the day, what is meta? And I like to start off with a good definition. I learned that in school and I continue to use it now today. So meta is a term we use interchangeably with meta search. So there are websites that aggregate prices from different sources on the platform onto one platform. So it's a place where you can go and you can find all the prices and rates and all the different options for what you're looking at. So it's used in many different industries, the energy, insurance, and obviously hotels. So things like Go Compare and comparethemarket.com, they're all meta engines as well. But obviously we're going to focus today on hotels. So what it does is, as a user, you've probably used them as a user in different industries as well, allows you to go to one place to find both the best property for what you're looking for, be it location, be it property type, and the best price then for that property. So by using filters for looking at things like hotel type, location, star rating, amenities, reviews, everything like that, you can focus down to find what property will be best for you and then see the prices for several different websites. You can find prices on sites that the user wouldn't usually know about. So some website that they may not have heard of before, they may not have considered to look at maybe the hotel's own website to make that booking. We need to look at it in a hotel perspective as both a marketing channel and a distribution channel. So it's somewhere where we need to be focused and make sure we appear well, you put budget behind to make sure it's working well for you, but also it's where we see bookings coming in from. So we need to make sure that that presence is working well for us also. So just some examples of meta search engines in the hotel space. So if you Google hotel ads, which is obviously Google's product, TripAdvisor, which is started out as a review engine and then started showing prices. Trivago, I suppose, would have been the original real meta search in the industry. There would be smaller ones like Hotels Combined and Kayak. And what we're seeing, I suppose, especially in the Irish market, is Google Hotel Ads is by far ahead of the rest of the competitors, the meta search engines, in the space that we're working in. So that's going to be the one I focus on most today. And I suppose also Google is the one that users are using without realizing that they're using a meta search, because it's appearing in your search results, it's appearing on Google Maps, which I'll go through. So that's why it very much has the monopoly in this area for meta search.
Just one very quick question, Helena, coming from Daniel. TripAdvisor Plus membership product, is that classed as meta? And do all their bookings have to go through the GDS for TripAdvisor Plus?
TripAdvisor Plus is interesting. We don't really have it a huge amount on, I suppose, this side of the Atlantic. It's bigger in America. They've launched it in America first. So what it's doing is you can sign up as a user, sign up for a profile, and you pay, I think it's like $100 a year for that profile. And you can then, when you book hotels, you get different perks, say like checkout or free breakfast or whatever the hotel is offering. It would be classed as meta because it's on TripAdvisor, which itself is a meta engine. But it's moved away from that on the perk side. So I don't really know if there's a specific definition for it. It's you're moving kind of into the OTA realm, and I suppose I'll talk a bit later about instant booking and making the bookings on the meta search engine as opposed to actually going into the OTA or the own website to make the booking. So I suppose the idea behind it from a TripAdvisor perspective is that they're getting more information because the bookings, they're seeing the actual information of the booking it's being made on their system. And I think they were struggling over the last couple of years to drive bookings through their meta search because people do really see TripAdvisor as a review engine. They don't think to make bookings on TripAdvisor. So that's the offer. That's the change they were making to try and drive bookings. So it's kind of, it is and it isn't meta search, I suppose. In terms of book the GDS for TripAdvisor, I don't know the answer to that question. I won't make up an answer to it. And because I haven't seen it on a hotel level, I don't know how the bookings are coming in. I don't have a client that I know is using it, so I haven't asked the question for someone on property of it. So okay, you're better off checking that with your GDS provider.
Don't worry, we'll let you go on. That's perfect. Thanks, Helena.
Perfect. So my first example, I'm just going to go through Trivago as your traditional meta search and what the user sees on the front when they go to search. So I've just done a search for Dublin. You have your dates, you have your amount of guests in the room, and then you've all your filters. So this gives you a filter which you can visibly see how many properties are offered in each kind of rate category. Choose your property type, your guest rating, your location, and you have more filters. So there's things like amenities is a big option there, and reviews as well. You can see the different properties available, and you can see the different rates. So Trivago here give you kind of the best deal, I suppose, is their green one, and then they give your lowest price separately. But as a user, you're going to click on this one because it's cheaper than the other two, basically, for the same property. And then you have the map as well as to highlight where the properties are. So actually just looking at this, you can glean a lot of information about these 4 properties as to where, like, what might be the best of those options. Obviously, you'll scroll down and see a longer list of properties than that. And you can sort by recommendations, price high to low, reviews high to low, and things like that as well. But then I suppose we're going to focus on Google. So I suppose we need to think about Google, and I'm going to kind of divert a little bit here about what Google is in general and why Google is such a big part of our lives and why Google is such a big part of our advertising spend. As a user for Google, so I have an Android phone. I use Gmail for my personal account. I use Google Maps when, please God, I get out on the road again to visit properties, to get to properties. I actually have the Google Home speaker as well. I have it here in my home office. So I was walking around the house, ask Google questions, get it to remind me of things. There's so much of my life, well, my photos are on Google. There's so much of my life that is on a personal note that is involved with Google. As a user, other than buying my phone and the hardware, I don't pay for this service. I have my Gmail account is free. All that Google storage is free. Google Drive is free. So Google wants to make sure for me that it provides what I need very easily without me having to think about it. If I want to search and I'm in my kitchen and talking to my home hub and I say, what is the best recipe for X, Y, and Z? It wants to give me the result really, really super quickly. I'm searching something on my phone. It wants to make sure within the first kind of couple of scrolls, I'm getting the answer that I want without having too much effort. So then we need to translate that to as website providers and as hotels and as service providers, what are Google selling us in their advertising, and what do Google need from us in order to be super easy for the user to use? So it is selling the advertisers as a user, my attention as a user. So it's selling the space for me to click on really, really easily without having to think about the answer. So if I am in the space where I am looking, I want to go to Cork. I don't really know the hotels in Cork very well. I do know I need to stay in the city centre. So the first thing I'm going to do is search hotels in Cork. At that point, what's not very useful to me is an ad for a hotel's own website just saying best deal here, because I don't know where that hotel is. I don't know, is that the best deal? Is it the best rated hotel? I don't know if there are other options for hotels. So what I want at that stage is a list of hotels. So this is when I've Googled hotels in Cork. This is what appears up for me. Sometimes there are ads, sometimes there are not ads. Depends on, I suppose, your own search history as well. It's given me the option of a few websites to find results on. So I go into booking.com and get a list, but also it's providing me that list of hotels. It's providing me a map, and it's providing me filters that I can use to put the dates I actually go into Cork on, how many people, and especially now free cancellation is really important with COVID. So I can filter on the search results page for what I'm looking for and get the rates. So the rates here are powered by Google Hotel Ads. So the first, I suppose the first thing when someone's looking for hotels, they're getting that meta search in front of them without the user even realizing that they're on a meta search site. And I suppose I've also put a screenshot here of how it looks on mobile if I did the exact same search on mobile, because we all need to think about mobile. It's the vast majority of our searches now, so we need to think of how everything looks on both sides. So I've done screenshots for both, and you get the exact same options. So what I need is given to me on my first search, and that's why Google does so well, because and why Google Hotel Ads does so well is because it's so little effort for me as a user to get those rates. So then I decided I'm going to have a look at Google Maps and kind of get a bit more sense of the area. So I've done a search here in Belfast. So this is on the Google Maps app on my phone. This screenshot is from. So I've done a search of Belfast hotels. It's given me a map where all the hotels are located. So I know I want to be in the city centre. So pretty quickly I can ignore these hotels and focus on these ones visually. And then it's given me a property as well, centrally located property. And then this is just scrolled it up, and it's given me the information to contact the property, and it's given me the prices here in from Google Hotel Ads as well very quickly within the Maps app. So we have it on search and we have it on Maps already. And then I have the same thing just on desktop, so just to give you how it looks. And then I've picked a hotel. I've decided actually I'm going to go to Hotel Westport. I've changed my mind, I'm not going to Belfast or Cork, I'm going to Westport now. And you have the knowledge panel on the right hand side when you do a desktop search. And here you have the rates for that hotel. I don't have to go to the hotel's own website to see all the rates. They're here on my search results. And then this is how it looks on mobile again, of the same options. So like, I suppose my point is all the different points of your search, of your booking process, and I'll talk about the funnel a little bit later as well. But Google is there. Google has its rates in front of you as a user, no matter how close you are to actually booking the hotel. And that's why Google Hotel Ads does so well, because it's so easy to use. It's just all the rates are there and you don't have to think about using it, and it's providing you with the best deal really, really simply.
Yeah, I think for me, Helena, I think I suppose the good thing and the absolutely terrifying thing is Google probably knows more about you than your husband, your wife, your brother, your sister.
Absolutely.
You know, Google knows everything. And I think
Yeah.
the interesting thing for me in this space is Google has said quite openly in the industry that it's not an OTA. You know, it's not. But actually, when you look like a duck, you quack like a duck, you're a duck. And to me, you know, Google is very much acting almost like an OTA. But I think there's that power struggle in that if you look at where those ads are coming from there, again, it's well documented that booking.com pay Google more for ads than all of the other websites online combined. You know, their Google ad spend is billions every year. So is Google almost fighting with itself that if it does come into this hotel space, because it's already there and dipping its toe very heavily in the water, you know, what's going to happen, do you think, in that space, or is that maybe an impossible question to ask?
It's an impossible question because Google hold their cards very close to their chest and these things. I suppose there has been speculation for a number of years that they will move into the OTA market, and things like book on Google, they're getting closer and closer to it all the time. And actually what I'm going to talk about next, the free listing, you're getting more and more information about that kind of thing. But you're right, Booking.com is their biggest customer. It is the single biggest cash transaction between two companies in the world, I think. They spent like $6 billion in 2019 on advertising, and Expedia then spent, I think, $5 billion. So their two biggest customers are in the hotel space. So they're look, Google isn't going to lose out. Whichever way it goes, it's not going to lose out. They're going to benefit from it. And I suppose there was a lot of hype in the last couple of weeks about the free listing that they've offered hotels to appear on Google Hotel Ads. Google Hotel Ads. So at the moment, well, as it stands, you have, when you do the search results and you're on the Google knowledge panel, you have the top 4 results here, and these are the ones that people are more likely going to click on because they're the ones that are in front of you. And once you have the option for view more rates, and once you click on that, this is then what you see. So you have your ads, your featured options. So these are the Google Hotel ads that are being paid for. And then these are all your free listings. So now as a hotel, we can link to Google Hotel ads and have your listing appear here for free, without paying for those, for that spot. So hotels that aren't running, especially now, don't have the budget for hotel ads with everything that's going on in the industry being closed. It provides you a kind of a more level playing field beside the OTAs. However, at the end of the day, very few people click on this button. Very few people actually click to see these rates because they have what they need here. They have the top 4 here. They won't go any further than that. So the likelihood of your rate being clicked on for the free listing is very, very low. And we need to kind of look at, if that's the case, if Google are still going to see the vast majority of clicks for their ads, and they're going to make their money off the ads from people click and book, why are they after giving the hotels this option? And you can say for certain it's not altruistic. It's in Google's interest. So what we're suspecting is then, for all the hotels who weren't connected to Google Hotel Ads, Google wanted visibility on their rates and availability. And by providing this free listing, that's what we're giving to Google, that visibility on it. Now, I'm not saying don't make use of this free listing if you're not running hotel ads. I would recommend that you do connect it up with your booking engine. But Google don't do anything for the good of the world. They're doing it for their own good. So they're getting this availability. So maybe in 2 years' time, when they decide, actually, yeah, we are going to go down this OTA route, they have so much information. And it's the exact same thing with Google Analytics. I say everyone here is using Google Analytics as their analytics tool on their website, because the other options are an absolute fortune to use. It's free, but Google see every single user that's on your website, and they have all of this information, and they're using that to improve the user experience on the internet for their users, so that they're a bigger part of their users' world.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think everything, you need to stop thinking, or we all need to stop thinking about these companies as a facilitator for bookings. They're just data harvesters. They're just collecting all of our data to use it in a particular way. And I think once you change your mindset on that, then you have a very different perspective. So Daniel had asked a question about that. So I hope, Daniel, that kind of answers your question. Anastasia has just asked something which I personally don't know the answer to, so I hope you do, Helena. Google has Google the capacity of connecting via channel managers such as Sabre and SiteMinder, and does this differ from paid listing? I'm not sure.
I know some channel managers do give you the option to link directly to Google Hotel Ads. I know D-Edge do. I don't know about SiteMinder. Okay. Check with your provider is what is the answer to that one. But also just, I suppose, think about it is, and I'll talk about this later in terms of the user experience. You need to make sure your user experience, you're offering the best one for your customer, especially for the ads, in order to appear in the top 4. So if you're linking your channel manager to the OTAs and your users are landing on a landing page from your channel manager, which is different from your website, that may cause a few issues. So I reckon, obviously we're biased because we are a website provider, but I would recommend that you make sure you have a similar user experience for all users on your site. So if they're clicking on an ad in Google Hotel Ads and coming through to your booking engine, that it would be the same experience if they were to Google your hotel and click on an organic listing and get to the same rates.
Okay.
So that's just, there's no confusion from a user experience. They're not saying, oh, which is the actual website, and that it makes it easier for them to book. You need to take all of the work away from the user. You need to make it as simple as possible for them to book.
Yeah, Sandra's just come in there, just for everyone's knowledge, to say SiteMinder offers direct connection, 15% commission. But I guess just to kind of focus back on what you've been talking there, Helena, because obviously we want you to go on. This is such a great subject. This magic top 4, okay, is it all about how much you pay, or is there other magic, like in booking.com, you have to have your images and the right rates and availability and all of that? Or how do you get on this magic top 4?
All of the above.
Okay.
And I do have a slide later on. So when you're looking back on this, you can see it all written out, but it is all of the above. Google have an algorithm. They don't tell us what's in that algorithm, but from our experience from working with hotels and from just our knowledge and from research, we can kind of figure out the main things. So obviously you have to bid, so you have to put budget behind it. You need to make sure your landing page is really strong. So you need to make sure you have a good website, you're directing people into a booking experience that works well and that is easy to use. Your rate competitiveness. So if your rate is higher than the other options that are available, it will push you down the pecking order. So that's a real benefit of Book Direct, and having a price differential on your own site is that you should be appearing cheaper than your competitors, your other website competitors. So obviously the cheaper price will help a lot as well. You Google My Business, you're right, Jen, in that sense, making sure your Google My Business profile is up to date, you're answering reviews, you're answering questions on it, your images are good. People are able to engage with that. You've obviously claimed it, and it's something you should be kind of checking once a month to make sure is correct and updating it regularly. So all of those play a part into helping appear at the top 4. You need to have sufficient budget in your bidding as well. Google have kind of, last year with COVID, they changed their models a bit. So you have the option to do either a cost per click, where you pay every time someone clicks on the ad, or a commission model. So before COVID, we had some properties that worked better on commission, some properties that worked better on CPC. We tested out, see what works best, and then run that for the hotel. There was a minimum bid of 10% for the commission, which is quite expensive, but then by the time you add your booking engine charge onto that as well. So for some hotels it worked, for other hotels the CPC model worked better. But with COVID, they actually dropped that down to 5% bid, or 5% commission. So that meant we were able to move more hotels onto the commission model because it was that much cheaper. So at the moment, the minimum is 5%. So hopefully that'll stay that way, and we'll be able to have the 2 options for more hotels in order to make sure we're able to optimize the bidding better in that sense. So I suppose work with your digital marketing partner, whoever's running your Google Hotel Ads campaigns for you, to make sure that they're optimizing it and trying things out to see what works best as well, and see where you get in, where you're appearing on the list. But for the most part, I suppose it's like organic. There is no definitive you are appearing number 2. It will change. But once you're in the top 4, we have realized it doesn't really matter where in the top 4 you are. Okay. As long as you're in the top 4, you'll see good bookings come through. But also make sure, obviously, your rate isn't more expensive, preferably a little bit lower.
Yeah, we've lots of questions on budget and things like that, but I'm going to let you go on, Helena, and then we can look back on those if that's okay.
Perfect. So love it or hate it, our advantages and disadvantages. So it's a level playing field. Your brand website is appearing alongside the OTAs. Your brand website is in front of your users as it appears up straight away on the page. You see an increase in direct traffic to your website when someone clicks on the ad from Google Hotel Ads. One really strong benefit versus even search ads is you actually don't appear if your hotel is full on a particular night, or if you're closed on a particular night, whereas your search ads will still appear up even if the date that the user is intending to stay at your hotel, you're not available. So you're showing it for dates that you have availability. And then when someone clicks on your site, if you're running a remarketing campaign, you're getting their cookies on the site as long as they've approved it, and then you can send your ads to them again. You own your guest data. So because the booking isn't coming through an OTA, it's coming directly to your site, that information is your own, and you can offer them to sign up to newsletters. You can remarket to them, as I said, and you have more information about your guests, and you can use your information with the help of Adrian to see what ways you can improve your website and your packages in future. Sustain a future relationship with this guest, because since they've booked on your own website, there's more likely to come back to your property. Obviously, the increase in revenue and your lower commission costs. So I was saying there about the 10% and 5% commission costs for Google Hotel Ads. When we're looking at running digital marketing campaigns for our clients, we look at the costs they're paying for booking.com. So say that's 18%. We make sure then when your marketing campaigns together with your booking commission, we're getting that rate in lower, or that cost in lower than that for you, so that there is a cost benefit to having all those bookings booked direct, and for obviously the management fees and things like that taken into account. Then the disadvantages: rate disparity is absolutely super clear if there's any issues with it. And then I suppose we will get to the conversation about all the smaller OTAs and the rates that they have appearing up, and you don't know where you're going to pull those rates from. So there's a flip to that as well. It's a very easy place to see how your rates are doing versus the OTAs, and make sure that your rates are pulling in correctly. You've all the small OTAs appearing that you don't necessarily know where they're pulling your rates or availability from. The lack of control over where your property is selling, because there's plenty of OTAs that we've all seen our hotels appear for that we've never signed up for, that we need to have a look at to see where their rates are coming from. If you're using the instant booking model, so the book on Google or Trip Connect, means you still don't have control over your guest data. So if the booking is happening on Google or on TripAdvisor, it's similar to it being on an OTA, where you don't necessarily get all the information from the booking, and you don't have the option to upsell. You don't have the options for newsletter signups and things like that. And then we have the two dominant players of Booking.com and Expedia, who own the vast majority of all the other websites that are appearing as well. So at the end of the day, they're in a much stronger position in terms of the amount of spaces they've taken up on that meta search than your one brand website is going to appear on it. So it's very hard to compete against those big boys in that sense. And obviously they're Google's biggest customers as well. So Google is not going to sacrifice their positioning on it either.
That's one of the things that you and I talked about, that I think I heard it quoted that 97% of all travel sites online are owned by either Expedia or Booking.com. So customers think they have a choice of where they're going, and we think that we're distributing, fairly across the market. But actually, it just comes down to the two big boys in the playground. But Paul has asked a question here that may not be answered fully. Paul, I'm just going to read it out here. So when will be the tipping point for with Google Hotel Ads that will see properties move away from the big OTAs? Do you think that's going to happen? So, if you're actually working with Meta and you've got a really strong book direct message, do you think that we're going to be relying more on Google and Google Hotel Finder, and that actually the days of Booking.com and Expedia kind of ruling the roost are over?
I think that wouldn't happen until Google become an OTA themselves. Because like we're saying, that Google and Expedia, Booking.com and Expedia are Google's two biggest customers. Until they can replace that source of income, they will still be their dominant players on the OTAs, or on the meta search. So I think we're a while off that yet. And again, as I said, Google play their cards close to their chest, so we don't know what they're developing in the background. So I suppose what we've seen over the last year is Book Direct has worked really well for hotels, and we've seen a lot more bookings come direct. So we want to make sure we're making the most of those opportunities to keep the bookings coming direct, and users are of more of a sense now that they will be happy to look direct, because they know that there is the option of getting a cheaper rate direct, whereas 10 years ago everyone assumed the rates were going to be cheaper on Booking.com. So that has shifted, but I think we're a long way off from Booking.com and Expedia not being so prominent in the space. And just as you were saying, Adrian, on terms of like the two companies owning so much of the area, if you think about it, Expedia owns Trivago, and Expedia's parent company owns TripAdvisor. So those other two big meta search engines are actually owned by Expedia as well. And And then people use booking.com as a meta search itself with the filters, and they have Priceline, Agoda, What If is owned by Expedia. I'm going to mix them up now, which is in my head. But all these brands that you're aware of are either owned by Expedia or booking.com, and there's so much power in that space, and then there's so much revenue there for Google to make the most of.
Yeah, I think that's when I was working directly in hotels as a consultant. I think that's when Meta first sort of burst onto the scene a few years back. I think that's what I find personally very difficult, was that you were paying to be on Meta, and then you were paying potentially for that booking to go through booking.com or Expedia or any of the others. So you were almost paying twice for that, and that sat very uncomfortably with me. But I guess as the distribution landscape has changed, and it's probably going to be more, more sort of cutthroat almost, coming out of COVID, I think it's probably something that, where we need to be almost, whether no matter what. And I don't want to ask you too much about budgets, because I know that you're going to talk about that. So yeah, we could talk about this all day, Helena. So I'm going to let you go on.
If we have the same conversation 12 months time, it could be very different.
Yeah,
especially since COVID has been such a disruptor to our market as well. Yeah. So then I just want to talk a bit about Book Direct, to kind of take a step back and say, like, obviously in Net Affinity we've been talking about Book Direct for a long time, but it's good to review why we do that, and it's not just something we do by default, that we still understand that it's important. So obviously your own site versus OTAs, your own site pre-COVID, we'll see much better cancellation rates. So we were seeing hotels with like 35 to 50% cancellation rate on booking.com, whereas our cancellation rate for our clients on Net Affinity was an average of 12%. So it's much lower pre-COVID. Obviously it's much higher now, but when we hopefully get back to the normal world, that's what we'll still see. And I suppose your bookings on, I'm going to talk about it afterwards, but people booking.com is encouraging you just to book it and have it and cancel it then if you need to later. So it's encouraging those high booking rates. And then as a hotel, you need to sell that room a second time. Your retention rates, your customers are your own, so they're much likely to come back to your property if they book direct than they are through the OTAs. And I remember reading a stat a few years ago, and I can't find it since, but I think it's definitely the case that 2% of bookers on booking.com will ever go back to the same hotel twice, if you're booking through booking.com. Control over your guest data, the higher average booking value. First of all, because you usually keep your higher room types on your own site, and you have your packages on your own site as well, and you kind of offer room only bed and breakfast on OTAs. But also they're more likely, even for hotels that have offered the higher room types, for the analysis we've done for properties, you'll see that the bookers on the OTAs will just go for the cheapest rate on the cheapest room the majority of the time. So they're more likely to upsell when they're, most of the time spend more money when they're making the booking, but then also when they're at the property, they're more likely to spend. And then obviously your cheaper acquisition costs from your commission basis. And by the time we add your commission and your marketing for your own site, we aim to keep it lower than your OTA cost. So why are the OTAs so successful? What are they doing that causes the bookers to rely on them so much? So they're a different product to your own hotel website. You think about the OTA's goal is to offer the user all of the hotels and all the rates for the rooms, but your own website is selling your rooms, it's selling your dining, it's selling your spa, your golf, your weddings, everything. It's a different experience for a user to use. So we are comparing apples with oranges on this as well. They have the global branding and they have the massive digital marketing budgets to match. So $6 billion for booking.com in 2019 and $5 billion for Expedia spent on digital marketing. They're constantly testing and changing the websites to improve user experience. They're doing a huge amount of beta testing. So say if I take just this example here, one thing they might do is change the color of this to green, and on a day show 50% of their users it in red, 50% of their users it in green. And they have enough traffic that in that 24 hours they can get statistically significant information. Say that 10 times fast to see which is better, the red or the green. And then if it's green, they'll change it to green for everybody. But it's very hard for an individual hotel to do, but they'd have to do it over a much longer period of time to get enough data on it. And then you're bringing in like seasonality changes. So it's much harder for small properties to do that, where it's so easy for booking.com and the OTAs to do it. They have their loyalty programs, which aren't exactly loyalty programs anymore. I think Genius, you get qualified for the Genius program after 2 bookings. Now you can get all the discounted rates. There's the simple booking process. It's so easy to just log onto your Facebook account through booking.com, and it has all your information. You can save your credit card into the system, and they discourage hotels from asking for address, and discourage hotels for asking for the credit card details, to try and just get that booking experience so quick for the user that it's a no-brainer for the user to go complete that booking. There's a constant reaffirmation, and these are a few of the examples I have here, like no cancellation, no prepayment needed, risk-free. So they're telling the user the whole way through the booking process that this is the right choice. And you may look at booking.com and say it's really, really busy, like there's a huge amount talking to you on the site, but you can be sure that with all the beta testing that you're doing, that every single word and every single full stop on that site is there for a reason, that it improves confirmation or conversion. There's a sense of urgency to book now. So we have the limited supply in Dublin for your dates. 9 4-star hotels are already unavailable. Last booked 23 hours ago. That's improved because of the EU legislation that says they have to make it much more clearer as to what they actually mean. Whereas before, this last booked would have said last booked 4 hours ago, but the booking might have been for 6 months' time when you're booking tomorrow. Whereas now they've had to make it clearer. But the user wouldn't have seen that. They would have just seen that, oh, maybe the night I want to book is nearly all gone. And then no commitment. So to stay flexible, since your dates are well from now, pick free cancellation. To stay flexible, a change of plans is a breeze when you have free cancellation. With COVID, this has been one of the big improvements on individual hotel websites, is we're making it much, much clearer about the free cancellation, and the fact that it's so easy to cancel your booking if you can't come. It was always there. It's just hoteliers weren't talking about it enough because they wanted to put other messages on the website. But that's been a massive help in the last year to drive bookings direct, because they're not having, the guest isn't having to deal with a middleman when they do want to cancel their booking. They have the reassurance that the hotel has said it's okay already on when they've made the booking. So something we need to make sure is on the homepage of websites, when you're going through the booking process, we're reaffirming it to the customers. So that's been a big improvement over the past year, but booking.com and OTAs have been doing it all along. And then put the shoe on the other foot, why should a guest book direct? What are we doing for them to make sure that it's worth them having a look at our website and not just using the website they use for all their bookings? So we need to give them a clear and definitive incentive. So your lower rate, make sure there's better value direct, make sure there's a better choice of rooms, make sure your booking process is very, very simple, and obviously have a good booking engine provider that allows for that, and that you're making the use of all their functionality to make the booking process easy. And then you've good digital marketing campaigns with a consistent book direct message as well. So it's not, your book direct message isn't one you're turning on and off depending on the time of year. It's something we keep going throughout the year to have the impact on for the high season and the low season as well. And then I've just some examples of book direct campaigns. So they're not all live at the moment. They have been over the last few years. But majority of these are either kind of €10 off, 10% off, 10% booking early on our site. Either at the time, I think this wasn't refundable, but sometimes hotels can offer that 10% off is refundable on their own site, but you'll only get that on their own site. And then one that works really, really well is your free breakfast. Sell your room only rate on booking.com or Expedia for the same price as your bed and breakfast rate is on your own site, because everybody loves a hotel breakfast, and it's something that's really tangible for the user as a benefit for staying at your hotel. And as a hotel guest, I'm really looking forward to hotel buffets coming back again. So that's something I'll be looking out for when I'm booking hotels, is that free breakfast, and it really does work really well. So is there any questions you want to go through there?
Well, gosh, I have a lot. Can I talk to you about budget at
yes.
this point? Okay, so some of the questions that I got in before, well, we've talked about the top 4 space. So what kind of budget should I expect to spend each month? And I thought that was an interesting question because of, well, again, for me, before the pandemic, I probably would have thought if you were a city centre hotel, more aggressive market, then you probably would have had to bid more because you were a city centre, to get that return. But now, sort of post-COVID, will leisure hotels need to rethink their budgets, because people are going to maybe be spending less time in the city centres and more time in those country or resort properties. Like, is there a set sort of industry standard of, you know, you need to be allocating this amount of budget and expect this amount of return on investment?
It's the answer to how much budget you need is how long is a piece of string.
Sure.
It all depends. So before COVID, we would always recommend that hotels allow at least €400 per month or £400 for their Google Hotel Ads campaign, to make sure that there is enough budget there to optimize it. This was before and after Google moved it from its own platform into Google Hotel Ads. It's been easier on Google Hotel Ads once it moved. It moved Google Hotel Ads from being its own platform into its Google Ads platform. So where you have your brand campaigns, where you have your location campaigns and your remarketing campaigns and your prospecting. So since it moved it in, it's worked much, much better, because as marketers, we can compare how your brand campaign is working and your hotel ads. We can see how they feed into each other, but we can also, it's much easier to move budget around between the two of them. So if one month your brand is doing really, really, really well and you don't want to stop it performing well, but hotel ads is not seeing as many conversions, we can move budget really easily between the two. So any people who are working with us, any of the attendees who are working with us will know that we don't like to set a specific budget for brand versus hotel ads, because we want to make sure they're working together. With COVID, demand has fallen through the floor, in terms of there's so much fewer people clicking on it. And as I was saying earlier, we've moved a lot of hotels to that commission basis on hotel ads, so that they're not paying for clicks, they're paying for when the booking actually comes through. So that's worked well. As to what will happen in the future, I don't know. That's the thing. I'd love to have a crystal ball and say, yes, it will, we'll know. But I suppose, I know you wanted to talk about, like, is it better to have an agency run these for you? And again, I'm biased because we are an agency, but it allows, because we're working with so many properties, we can learn from these 5 properties doing this and these 5 properties doing that, and we can say, okay, this has worked well for here, so let's try it here. And we can get a better overall sense of your resort properties are doing this and working well, and your city centre properties are doing this and working well. And saying that, we might see 3 resort properties say work well on the CPC model, but then another just works better on the commission model. So yes, it's important to see the overall trends and what's happening in the landscape as a whole, but it's also important to test both on each hotel and see which works well for each hotel. So that, I suppose, it's that the time to do that and the knowledge to do that is what an agency will bring to you. And it's much more difficult to do that on an individual hotel basis when you're only looking at one Google Ads platform account. So I suppose at the moment budgets aren't spending because the demand isn't there, but we don't want to limit them either. So because we know when we announce when hotels are going to open again, that will just go through the roof overnight. Sure. So we don't want to limit that. So I haven't really answered your question, but I hope I answered your question at the same time.
I've got another sort of 2-parter for you, Helena, just keep you on your toes. I guess the commission model that you're talking about, one, is it a set commission? Is it 10, 12, 15? You know, what kind of commission should we expect? And is the commission charged when the booking is made? And will the commission be charged if the booking gets cancelled?
So with commission, it's a minimum commission. So as I said, it's now 5%, but you can increase whoever's running your Google Ads campaign can increase that to try and improve the positioning on it. So if it's working well, we might increase it to try and gain more traction, or if it's not working well, we may need to increase it to make sure it's more visible. So as I said, we work to try and keep your overall commission lower than the OTAs. So if, for instance, your commission with us was 5%, giving too big a figure there, we're not going to set that at 15%, so you're not paying 20% overall commission. So we're going to work to try and get it below altogether, and obviously take into account your other spend on Google as well.
Sure.
I'm sorry, what was the other part of the question there?
So if it's a commission model, is it charged when the booking is made, or, you know, if the booking is cancelled, are you still charged?
With Google, it's charged within the month of the click.
Okay.
So if you make a booking now in March for September, as a hotelier, I'm paying for that click or that booking or the commission now in March. Google don't know if that booking has cancelled again. We don't, that information isn't sent back to Google. So you are paying for it even if they don't actually convert at the hotel and actually have the booking. So they charge you on the time of the click, because it's part of the overall Google Ads platform. So they're doing the same thing with your search campaigns and your brand and your display. They're charging those when at the time of clicking.
Okay. For those hotels who maybe don't know us particularly well, we actually moderate a hotel WhatsApp group where no suppliers are allowed. It's only hotels, so they can ask lots of questions in a very safe environment. But one of the questions that gets asked all the time is, on Meta, where are these rates coming from? And what can you do for people who are, putting a ridiculous rate for your hotel, advertised on a Meta site of like, say, 60 quid. And then when you go in and you click through, it's 120. But how can you stop that?
It's so difficult. It's really, really difficult. And it was difficult when I was working in hotels as well. It's so hard. For the ones that are, say, offering £60 and when you click on it, it's £120, that's false advertising. So if you're running your own Google Hotel Ads campaign, report it to Google. If, say, for instance, you're using an agency like ourselves, let us know, take screenshots of it, including the date, and let us know, and we'll report it through your campaign to Google. They're not the quickest to always come back to you on things, but they do, I suppose, the integrity of their rates is really important from a user perspective. So if they spot it, they will fix it. For the smaller OTAs where you don't know where, in the name of God, they're pulling the rates from, what you can check, there's kind of two ways you can look at it, and they're a lot of effort, is look in their T's and C's and see if it mentions where they're pulling their rates from.
Okay.
Make yourself a large cup of tea before you read this, because they're long and they're detailed. They're quite hard to spot, and I suppose less and less, I've noticed over the years, less and less of them are including it as well, because I've done a lot of searching over the years for them. And the other way of doing it, when I was in Heathrow, what I used to ask the front desk to do was, if someone was booked in through Agoda, for instance, was the example at the time that I had a lot of issues with, I'd say, right, for the next 2 days, guys, anyone that's booked through Agoda, can you get a printout of their, or have a look at on their confirmation on their phone to see what they've booked it with. That was easy to do in Heathrow because that particular hotel was a 350 bedroom hotel, so we had a lot of obviously bookings coming in. But for smaller hotels, and especially now, you're not seeing that level of guests staying. So go on and make a test booking yourself. Go on to those cheaper websites, or those websites you have no idea where the bookings are coming from. Book it in your own name, and then when you see it come through on your channel manager, you see it wherever the booking comes through on, you'll know what source then they're getting the rates and availability from. And they're probably not going to be the same name on both the booking and on the actual booking going through to you at the hotel. So that's probably the quickest way of doing it. And preferably, hopefully, they're non-refund, or they're not non-refundable rates, so you don't actually have a charge on your credit card at the same time. But that is the most direct way of figuring out where those rates are coming from. Once you have figured it out, then talk to that provider and check their contract with you and see, do they have the ability to pass on your rates? Have you actually agreed that with them without realizing it? And if it is not in the contract, talk to them and say, right, this is causing me problems. This is an issue for me. Is there anything we can do on it? Sometimes when you bring it to their attention, it helps resolve it. Sometimes you have to pay a bit more hardball than that and threaten to reduce your availability. I'm not going to give you a definitive answer on what to do there, because it depends on your relationship with the OTA, and I don't want to put your other business too much at risk either. But figuring out where it's coming from, the best thing to do is to do a test booking.
Yeah, I guess going back to my time working in hotels as well, Helena, what I find, and I'm hoping that it's not the case as much now, but this is where, again, revenue and digital and sales all have to be talking, because if sales can go out and sign contracts with net tour operators, so net rates, not understanding that there's something in that contract that says they can push those net rates out on distribution channels. So that contracting and those net tour op rates, you have to be really tight on those. And again, please, I beg you, coming out of COVID, don't be desperate for business. Keep your rates high, keep your contracts tight and just make sure that you're not sort of throwing rates out there, hoping that they're going to stick to the wall, because you are going to really pay for that. I have another couple of questions, but one Emer has just asked. That Emer understood that Google commission model was pay per stay, and if I cancelled, there was no charge. If this is not the case, like you just explained, if you book it in March, you pay for it in March. And I totally understand that Google doesn't get that loop round of a cancellation, because you might cancel it directly to the hotel, so they're not going to get that. So what is the benefit of commission rather than pay per click or cost per acquisition?
The benefit is optimizing the campaign and making sure you're appearing in that top 4, and making sure you're appearing it's not just on the top 4 and I suppose in the knowledge panel, but on your maps and things like that as well. So it's your bid. It's as we're saying, actually I'll go on to the next slide, is because I have it all here in one. The algorithm that brings you up in the top 4, the paid position is one of the most important things that we're aware of with the algorithm. So that's the reason behind it. Again, everything Google is doing is in their own benefit.
Yeah, completely agree. Just one here from Nicholas. What is considered a good conversion from Google Ads?
Again, how long is a piece of string? It's very difficult to tell you that exactly. And because Google has moved to linear attribution, where they will assign, say, if as a user, I first of all search hotels in Cork, and then I have a look at the list. I click on an ad for, sorry, I'm going to rephrase that again so I say it correctly. So as a hotel, I have a campaign for a location campaign for a hotel, and I'm peering for hotels in Cork, and I'm as a user search for hotels in Cork, and I click on that ad and I get into your hotel and I have a look around, I get to your things to do in Cork page, and I decide, have a look at your rates, and I say, okay, well, that's on my list of hotels I want to look at, and I'll have a look at another 3 or 4 hotels. Then the next day I come back and said, all right, I'm definitely going to stay in Cork, and I've decided that this is a hotel I want to look at, and I do another search, and your brand campaign comes up, and I click on your brand campaign and I go in and have a look again, and I decide, okay, this is the rate plan I'm going to book, and I think these are the dates, but I just need to check with himself and make sure that he can get the time off work and I can get the time off work before I book it. Then I go back again and I search the hotel a second time, or sorry, to our hotel directly a second time, and I see the hotel ad come up, and I say, okay, those are the dates I was looking at yesterday, because it fills in the dates. I know that's the rate I was going to book, so I just book it, click on the hotel ads and go through and book it there. So I've clicked on 3 different ads that the hotel has been portraying through Google, and I've made one booking despite clicking on 3 ads. So what Google now will do will assign 33% of the booking to each of those clicks. So on Google Hotel Ads, it's gotten 33% of the what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, it's the credit for those ads, for those clicks. Sorry, it's gotten 33% of the credit for that booking. So it's not a whole booking though, so I'm not seeing a direct conversion rate on Google Hotel Ads. So what we do is, when we look at all of our campaigns for Google Ads in general, we look at our cost per acquisition percentage. So we take your cost that you spend on those campaigns versus the revenue that campaign has brought in, whether it be a third of the value of the booking or 100% of the value of the booking. Google adds it all up over the period of a month, and we see what that is a percentage of. So go back to the fact that we aim to make sure your cost of marketing is below your commission from your OTAs when you include your booking engine commission. So say if that was at 10%, for some hotels that can be quite good. If it's on your brand campaign, it can be a little bit more expensive, or some hotels might see a cost per acquisition of 1%. So we will look at that with your Google Ads campaign together, your Google Hotel Ads campaign, and any other campaigns you're running as well. And we look at it as a whole to see your whole Google Ads platform, how that is converting, because your location campaign and your brand campaign has helped that booking come through on Google Hotel Ads. So it's not as easy to say, okay, 20% conversion rates is excellent, because that would be very, very excellent, but it's part of a much bigger picture, and especially since Google has moved that into the Google Ads platform as a whole.
And I think that probably leads on to a really good question, and I love this question because it's something that I get asked all the time, is how much time should you allocate to Meta, like over a week, let's say, and who is the best person within your team? And I guess when I look at the portfolio of hotels that we work with, there's lots and lots of people who are extremely good at marketing, or really good at revenue, or really good at sales. But that digital piece kind of isn't, I think it's an industry we're not really good at teaching that digital piece, when we're bringing great people into the organization. So personally, I feel it's something that's very lacking in a skill set for most of our revenue managers. They pass it back to marketing, pass it on to someone else. So where do you feel that responsibility within your portfolio of hotels normally sits, and how much time should you really be allocating to that?
I'll just slip onto the next slide because it's about digital marketing campaigns. So you can be reading that in the background. But I suppose as because Google Hotel Ads is part of your Google Ads platform as a whole, so it's whoever is managing that should be the person who's managing it, because you'll be working it together. It's not purely marketing, it's not purely revenue, because it's a mixture of both, and you do need to have a really good insight into both to make sure that you're allowing for the impact that rates are going to have on it, and your competitiveness and rate disparity and things like that. So obviously, if it's an agency is running your Google Hotel Ads, Google Ads campaigns, they should be managing your Google Hotel Ads, so it's all working together. If it's someone on site, it is who is managing your Google Ads. For some hotels, that might be your marketing specialist or your marketing executive. Some hotels that might be your revenue manager. I don't have a definitive answer to that, because I suppose a lot of our clients have the marketing with us, so we run it for them, and we have the benefit of seeing it how it performs in many different hotels. So it's a more difficult question to answer, and I suppose you need to weigh up if it's worth spending your time on at all, or is it worth outsourcing to get an agency to do it for you? Will you A, have the time back, and B, then make sure your campaign is being optimized to the fullest degree as well? It really depends on your knowledge. Google do have a huge amount of trainings that they have. You can get certified on Google. So if it is something you're doing in-house, make sure you're making the most of those trainings, and doing them regularly, at least once a year, to keep on top of everything, and keeping on top of the industry newsletters as well for the changes and improvements.
Sure. Helena, I'm very conscious of time, so I'm going to let you fly on, because it's kind of 11 o'clock. So
it's all right. To be honest, we've come back and we've gone through most of this in our slides already, which is great. It's good. So just so what are you doing? So you need to make sure you're appearing in the top 4. You need to make sure you're looking at your Google Hotel Ads as part of your overall digital marketing campaigns. You need to make sure you have a great user experience where the guest lands on your site. So your website is a good mobile first website. You're using the word responsive a hell of a lot less, because now 75% of traffic is going to mobile. So when you think of your website, you need to stop thinking about your desktop computer and you start thinking about your phone. And because that's the majority of your users are going to see that. You need to make sure you have a very strong user experience, that your load speed is good. You don't have a load of really high sized images on your homepage, that what is on your homepage is relevant. The navigation is good. It's easy to get around your site. You have quality content, which obviously helps your SEO as well. And you have very strong landing pages. That you have a seamless booking process, so that when you are on the get the user into your booking engine, you give them rates and availability, that it's very easy for them to carry on through. There's not blockers there preventing them from making the booking. So you obviously mobile first booking engine. It's one that's conversion focused. It's clear and it's uncluttered. You're not giving them a load of pop-ups on every stage of the booking engine. You're not telling them to go have a look at this, have a look at that. That the information that's on the booking engine is relevant, but not too much. It's a secure booking process, so they don't have a problem putting their credit card in. And then we're working with your booking engine providers. You're getting their recommendations. You're applying their recommendations. So when we work with our hotels, we very much look at them from a booking process point of view, from a user perspective, but also what works operationally from their property, because what we recommend to one hotel might not be the same for another hotel, depending on their type of property and what they're looking to achieve. So work with us. If we send you a booking engine audit, and if you don't understand anything, come back to us and we'll talk you through it. And if you don't agree with something, talk to us and we'll talk you through it as well and see what works best for you. And then some other points. Claim your Google My Business profile and keep it up to date. Have your opening status. At the moment, a lot of hotels are closed, so make sure your note is closed, but also as soon as you open up again, make sure that's updated so people are confident when they Google you that your open status is correct. Use your call out messages within your Google Hotel Ads campaigns as well. So the example here is your special offers, best price guarantee. We put a lot of them for hotels that are open for essential workers, things like that appear up. Make sure your images are all good. So what happens with Google is people leave reviews and add their own images in, and sometimes they can creep into your Google My Business profile and be the first one that someone sees. So if that's the case, report it. So to try and get Google to take it down, but also make sure your own good high quality images are loaded up on it as well. Look at the Q&As, answer the Q&As, because people will be much more likely to believe the answer, and obviously be grateful that the hotel has taken the time to answer the questions that they've asked on Google. It is possible for anyone to answer that question, so you want to make sure that you're answering it with the correct information. What some hotels have done, and we recommend, and be very careful about it though, is log on in your personal profile and ask a few questions and then answer it as a hotel. But don't answer hotel questions, don't ask questions at the hotel, ask them as someone else. And obviously be careful about it. So don't leave reviews for your own hotel, because that's obviously very, very bad business practice. But do respond to your reviews. So Google is a place that people can leave reviews, and Google also aggregates reviews from across the hotel, across the web, the internet. So you'll see Booking.com reviews and TripAdvisor reviews on here. So respond to your reviews on all the channels so that they'll see the responses there as well. Regularly check your rates. So have a look at the rates on hotel ads. See if you have a rate shopper, use that tool as well, and make sure you're appearing correctly in the way you want it to, and there isn't another website undercutting you. Do your test bookings to figure out where booking rates are pulling from, and update all profiles and all sites where your hotel appears. So if there's a small OTA you've never heard of before, go in and claim your profile and make sure there isn't wrong information on those profiles, so that might deter someone from booking at your property. And you may find out that they've scraped images from an old website that are 3 or 4 years old, so you want to try and update those if you can as well. So they all those things together play a part in improving your meta appearance. And then I just have one last slide here. We've just highlighted, suppose we have our blog and we have our webinars and podcasts that we've done over the past year. So I know Adrian is going to send that out afterwards. So have a look and sign up to our blog to get this information. So what we hear from Google, we'll distill and we'll send back on to you guys as hoteliers as well, so that you can understand it in how it'll impact hotels. So and please do connect with me on LinkedIn as well. I'd be delighted to engage with you guys there.
Helena, thank you so much. We are well over and out of time, but again, I think we could have probably talked for a lot longer. I just want to say thank you so much. We will be sending out the recording. It is closed, so only people who joined us today and register for the series will get access to it. Helena has very kindly sent out some information which will be part of that as well. And then if you don't mind, what we do for anyone who joins us, we know, I'm sure they know that we make a personal donation to our charity, which is Lend with Care, after every webinar. So I just randomly pick someone who was online today and ask them to choose an entrepreneur for us to donate to. So we'll do that later on today, and hopefully have that out as well. But Helena, thank you so much for giving up your time. Great subject. I certainly learned a lot, and I'm sure there'll be lots more questions. So thank you so much for your time today. It was really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Bye, guys.